Good afternoon. It is the 26th of August, about 1 o'clock. I'm by the Orthodox Church here. I'm not sure what's going on, but as you see with the Orthodox Church, women are supposed to have their head covered. It's a little bit like Islam. I think if you go inside the church, I know that in some countries at least you have to have your legs covered. You can't go in with a short dress. Okay, like I say, don't know what's going on. But this metro stop is Nyamiga, and of course the metro exit, well, one of them anyway, is right near this church. It's right down here below. So if you are Orthodox and you want to go to the main Orthodox church here in Minsk, Nyamiga is the stop for you. Okay, well, just showing you that, I'm going to be now going to the other side over here, if you can see anything. See you on the other side. Yes, I made it to the other side. And I should clarify one thing, about wearing headscarves. I believe in Orthodox churches, at least the ones I'm familiar with, you're not really required to wear a headscarf unless you go inside of the church. That's what I've been told. And in Islam, as you know, you see women running around wearing headscarves. But in truth, there is nothing in Islam that says women have to wear headscarves. And I guess in the Haditha, which is another holy writing other than the Quran, what was asked of Muhammad once is if a woman should be wearing a headscarf, and he said when she prays. So they just take it way too far. Well, a little bit too far. Way too far is what they were doing in Afghanistan, covering up a woman like she's wearing a gunny sack, only little peepholes for her eyes. So that's going really extreme, and there's nothing in Islam that says a woman has to be dressed like that. But it's some sort of a general view. Like the headscarf is because women are supposed to have beautiful hair, and oh, what about me? but they're supposed to have almost more beautiful hair than I have, but and they're supposed to keep it covered because men will, maybe they won't be praying or something like that. They'll get too excited looking at women's hair. I guess that's the thing. I don't know. So maybe legs too, cover the legs when you're in church. But I guess they just extended that to go much further in places like, well, the real extreme Muslim churches where you have to be covered up completely. Well, you know, interpretations of everything. So let's talk about another woman, Kaja Kallas of Estonia. Calls for her to resign. What do you call it? Abdicate. Get out of office. Scoot. Have been growing stronger, and the reason for that is because her husband was conducting business with Russia after the beginning of the conflict with Ukraine, and yeah, it's all a bunch of crazy stuff. I guess he has a transport business, you know, transporting, as far as I know, goods, items, maybe food, I don't know, but between Russia and Estonia. And now lately he has said he is resigning his position. Maybe he's selling out because he made a huge amount of money, I guess, because it was outlawed for everybody else. Kaja Kallas, let's see if I can find her words here. All business with Russia must stop. She said that right after the beginning of the military operation, and you know, now she pulled a Sleepy Joe on all of us. She said she has no idea of her husband's business, his businesses, or his business operations, like Sleepy Joe. You know, the big guy, 10% for the big guy, didn't know anything about it. And of course now everybody knows a lot differently. Joe Biden is the one that was actually the CEO of Hunter Biden's business operations. So, you know, peddling influence is another thing. And Kaja Kallas being Prime Minister of Estonia. Now, doesn't that sound like a little bit of something? I mean, you talk about Nancy Pelosi or any of these other people. You know, they have the inside track on what policies are going to be coming down, so they know where to invest and where not to invest, what to sell out on, and that's been happening for a long, long time. So, but she says she will not resign because she is there for the freedom of Ukraine and Estonia. She of course adds that Estonia a little bit later, but you know, she's there for Ukraine. You know, just like I guess Baerbock. Makes you really wonder. I don't know. I think these people don't really mean that seriously, because I can't see how these people would say something like that, knowing that their people are going to say, well, we want somebody that's for our country and not for Ukraine. You know, this big black hole where all the money is getting shoveled into and disappearing for reasons of vast corruption, you know, and weapons trade, organs trade, drug trade. Well, let's not even talk about that kind of stuff. I don't know, there was some kind of a rating scheme, and I think they rated Ukraine to be, Kiev, it was Kiev, to be rated like 38th most crime-ridden city. It wasn't about corruption. Corruption, I think they'd be a lot higher on that scale. I think obviously they've always been rated like amongst the most corrupt countries in Europe. I mean, the most corrupt country in Europe. So yeah, corruption, crime, I guess. Maybe crime meaning like it's not safe to go out at night. Now, talk about Minsk, completely the opposite. You know, and I hope it will never change here. And I think that if we have the same leadership for as long as possible, it's not going to change. I remember Oregon being one of the safest places in the United States. And I don't really know why, but you had the Crips and the Bloods moved up from Los Angeles and moved into Portland and made it one of the worst places in the United States, one of the biggest crime areas. I remember even during the time of these Black Lives Matter protests, when the chief of police of Portland, who was black, and most of his staff is black, you could even see it. If you can find that interview on CNN, you know, that would really shock you, because you see how confused he is. You could see the confusion in his eyes, that he couldn't believe that here they were breaking up this Black Lives Matter protest, and yet most all the police are black and most all the protesters are white, and yet these people are protesting for Black Lives Matter. And then of course all these protests, you know, you've never seen so many black people killed in the United States than during those protests in the United States, the Democrat Black Lives Matter protests. And I think I've mentioned before, when you find out who were the founders of Black Lives Matter, you won't be shocked to know that old Gorgeous George, and you all know who I'm talking about, that he was one of the main founders. Barack Obama was one of the main founders, and there was two bankers. I don't know their name, I don't know the bank, but they were also located in California, believe it or not. And then there was some other guy, I don't know, you know, some guy. He's in that movie with that other guy that was in the movie from the one from last year. Sorry, I had to say that. That's from Clerks. If you watch Clerks. Do you have that one movie with that one guy that was in that movie with that other guy from last year? Oh yeah, I have that movie. Yeah, old Sleepy Joe and Hunter. Big money there. I tell you what, everything is done for money. You know, money and power, like I say, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's very obvious. Money and power are basically different sides of the same coin. One gets the other, and the other gets the other one. I kind of want to walk over this way, but I think if I walk with the sun behind me, you're looking at me as a silhouette. I don't really like that. Okay, also a big story. You know what the breaking news was this morning when I was starting to look at what the most pertinent news is of the day, and just the last couple of days. I didn't do a video yesterday, but the most pertinent was possibly it could be was that Niger have now placed their military on high alert. And as you see what's going on, all the escalations there, because right before that, I think it was yesterday, I think Niger did this today. They put their military on high alert. That's why I said breaking news. But yesterday, they told the French ambassador to leave, and he's got 48 hours to get out. And he said no, he's not going to leave. That government has no authority, so they're not going to leave. But actually, this started out with the foreign minister, the new foreign minister of the new government of Niger, inviting the ambassador of France to have a meeting, and then that French ambassador said no. So basically, you know, they're really at each other's throats right now. And I was thinking, you know, France is a main suspect in this this deal with Prigozhin, but I'll tell you, I'm starting to wonder. You know, and I was telling you, like a lot of these, like certain people, like these high people, like Clintons and even governments, they don't really ever enact revenge whenever some dastardly deed, so to speak, is perpetrated. It's not necessarily for revenge purposes. It's normally to end, believing that they can end something or something like that. It's to have some kind of effect. And revenge, it has an effect, but it's not really that it's going to change any policy or anything, because it's already something after the fact. But Ukraine is actually a lot different. They do things partly that way. They do everything for image, very much for image. Everything is image, image, image. And just like it was Danilov the other day was saying that they're going, you know, just like what they did with already a few other journalists, um, they will probably conduct assassinations of, well, they said bloggers and vloggers, people like me making movies. Very easy. I'm here in Minsk, very close. So, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to shut up really or nothing. I just kind of tell things the way they are, and you know, if they don't like it, then they should change their behavior. So, but I'm not one of the worst. I don't think I'm on their kill list. Maybe I am. I don't know. Maybe they're going to expand that kill list to anybody that says anything negative about Ukraine. So, and you know, it sort of brings to mind again Gonzalo Lira. I think maybe they weren't harder on him the first time when they had him in custody, is probably because they're trying to show, look at how nice we are. I really don't know. You know, it's all guesstimate work. So, and I'm not going to guesstimate that he's a SBU agent or something like that, because that certainly doesn't pass the smell test, as I've said. There's far less evidence for that. So it's like, well, what do they expect? What is he going to do for them? What can he possibly do for them when he's talking negative about Ukraine? That's exactly what they don't want. So nothing more to be talked about on that. But also, they have a video out somewhere, if you can find it on Telegram channels, and there's like thousands of people protesting in Niger, and it's supposed to be protesting for France to leave. And of course, I'm sure they would love to do that if that isn't legitimate. So, and one thing I was talking about before is, you know, one of the reasons why they should leave is, you know, a lot of the African people have slowly come to realize, well, not slowly, probably they've known this beginning like at least decades ago, that they've been exploited. And one of the main reasons how Niger has been exploited, like I said, is mainly everybody talks about the uranium. And the figure was that they were getting paid 5% of what the value of that uranium is for. And if you take 5%, what does that do for you? That maybe pays some of the wages of the people that are mining the uranium, and then that's it. So in other words, you don't really make any profit whatsoever for it. And that's probably worse than exploitation. That's almost, matter of fact, I tell you what, they'd be happier with slavery, because slavery, at least you get your food and everything that's for it. And there's a lot of places like in South America where you work and you almost cannot afford the food. I remember seeing reports, I don't think it was coffee, you know, being my the field that I was in. I think it was I don't know, was it even agriculture? But the husband works mostly because they feed him on the job, and even though there's no pay, and oh, it was cocoa. That was cocoa production, and there's a lot of time they burn the cocoa stalks, you know, when it's some certain production or whatever, and it's a very nasty job, very unhealthy, and you definitely need to have like rubber boots. What we wore rubber boots all the time, you know, summer of course. It's the rubber boots is mostly for protection, you know, and in places where I was at, you know, high weeds you got to walk through, because it's not like summer and winter where the weeds stop growing. The weeds never stop growing in hot places like that. So, and then we have something like, for example, called elephant grass, and that gets like 8 feet tall, you know, very, very high. It grows sometimes, I don't know, in the rainy season, maybe it grows 4 to 6 inches every day. Maybe it's actually more than that. You know, you cut it down, and the next day, you know, you might be very slow for a day or so, but you come down a few days later, and there you have 6 inches, 8 inches of elephant grass already grown back. Cows love it though. Cows, that's fabulous for cows. But I'm just throwing that in, getting myself off on a tangent now, and I'm kind of forgetting where I was at. You know, talking about agriculture. Yeah, like I said, I forgot where I was at. I did it. I finally did it to myself. So, but I was talking about Niger, and yeah, like I say, the military is on maximum alert. Protests all over the place, huge exploitation, And I was thinking, tying, maybe they had a little bit to do with Prigozhin, because Prigozhin is actually more famous for the Central. He did a huge amount for the Central African Republic, for their efforts. And I guess they're in mourning right now because Wagner did so much for them. And they paid him in gold, I guess. So, and that was just recently. So apparently that was a day or so before this plane crash. And this plane crash, I'm kind of, it looks like it was a missile, but right inside of Russia, I don't really think it could be. So otherwise, that leaves an explosion. That leaves a bomb planted, maybe 2 bombs. I think I heard there were 2 explosions. And you can bet that the West has something to do with that. Something to do with it. I'm not saying they're the perpetrators. I'm sort of wondering if it had something to do with anybody that's very sympathetic to Ukraine. So you can look at that as something being one of the possible things. And also some of the news that I'm putting on. We talk about Ukraine. I guess just yesterday, I believe, they shot and killed 23 of their own people that were refusing to go to their posts. So they killed them. And I think this squad leader, he had already killed somebody recently. It was the 123rd Territorial Defense Brigade. Yeah, they wanted to abandon their positions, which, who knows what that means? Maybe their position supposedly was to go through a minefield. I don't know. But there's also, I'll get to that too. I don't know why everybody has to walk this way. They walk up the steps and everybody, they see me and they walk this way. They want to see what I'm doing, I guess. Here. Give me the stare here. I don't, like I said, I don't really like it. Every single person. Vast areas to go over here, even a walkway, but nobody takes that right walkway that's directly ahead. I don't know. They can go over here and start going to these places where you can buy food and all that. So maybe I better stand over this way if nobody's, I'll bet people start walking this way now. So, yes. And let me get to here. I wrote down a quote. I'm trying to remember now where that was. Okay, this was the governor of Zaporozhye, Balitsky. He was talking about what went on yesterday. He said, yesterday, at the cost of colossal losses, they managed to reach the first defensive line of engineering barrier. So in other words, in Zaporozhye, who knows where and how big of an area, they did reach the first line of defense of the Russian defenses. So, but listen, there's more. As a result, the enemy assault groups that managed to reach yesterday were completely destroyed tonight. So in the day, they made it and Russia completely destroyed them all. So they made it to that first line of defense, and I guess that sort of tells you that maybe a lot of the minefield is cleared by mostly human bodies. Got a nice soft grass here. If you saw them. So we can't say, oh, they're far away from the first line of defense, when actually they made it. They made it already, so being completely destroyed. So, and I'm not bragging or saying how great Ukraine is doing, because I tell you what, that's just the first line of defense, and Russia still has huge amounts of artillery, and they've got a lot of reserves behind those. So it's kind of a losing battle unless you use biological means, chemical means, and of course they are using those, and now I'll get into that too. There has been an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Rzeszów, Poland. It's, I don't know why Ania K did not mention this. Maybe she just didn't see that on that site, because I saw a video from her that she put out today, this morning, and well, this is actually some new news, so, but I'm sure she saw that, and it has to do with Poland. I don't know, maybe she didn't see that. I don't want to be critical or sound critical of her, because she does a very good job. Anya K. So, anyway, in this city that's near the Ukraine border and where the United States has a very large military presence. And as a matter of fact, that town is the jumping point into Ukraine from Poland, from the West, from the United States, and all these weapons. And when you get dignitaries visiting Ukraine, they go through this town by train. It's again, it's let's see, it's how to pronounce it. I don't know if anybody can pronounce Polish very well that doesn't know Polish. Rzeszow. Rezzow. So there might be different ways to spell it. You know, we have, strangely enough, we have things written in Polish, all of the destinations and all the metro stops in the Minsk metro, and of course they're written in Latin letters. So a lot of times you can pronounce the Russian much better after you read the Polish, but it's not always the same. And then again, I'll tell you what, it's very confusing in the metro because most everything is written in Belarusian. And Belarusian is a little bit close to Polish, but it's also a little bit close to Russian. So you don't really know what the heck it is. And then sometimes you go into these stops and they have various names. So there's like 3 names for that metro station. You see the one written on the wall on one side, and then the one written on the wall on the other side, and it's a completely different word on one wall as in the other wall. And then there might be another name for it, and in another language, and is it Belarusian or Russian? So it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit tricky in Belarus. Don't think that you're going to be going around in the metro and think you're going to learn Russian that way, because you won't. And I think mostly in all of these government buildings and whatnot, everything is written in Belarusian. So it kind of makes it hard that way. It's better if you get a Russian class while you're in Belarus, and then get catapulted very quickly into the Russian language, you know, to learn Russian language, because that's mostly what's spoken. There's a lot of Belarusians, they don't know much of any of the Belarusian language. They only know Russian. It's much like a foreign language. I think there's some people here, they know some other languages like Bulgarian or Ukrainian just as much as they know Belarusian. I've seen that, so that's just for your information. Yes, but anyway, this town, so this Legionnaire's disease, apparently, let's see, where did I read it? 113 people have caught it, and 7 people have died, and that's not and it's actually related to pneumonia, apparently, and a lot of time you get it from water, it's a bacteria in the water. And I remember even in the Caribbean, in tourist places, some of them are kind of, maybe it's a little bit paranoid, but before some guests come into a room, they want you to go in, some of the staff anyway, to go in. Had, you know, people I know that had to tell staff to go in and just turn the water on for a second and turn it off, because somehow Legionnaire's disease has been known, you know, to be sitting up in the shower head in hot areas or something like that. I think that's too paranoid, but especially when the fact that there has, you know, been maybe 2 cases of Legionnaire's disease in the entire Caribbean in 5 years. So I think that's going a little bit too far. So, and anyway, with this Legionnaire's disease, guess who the first subject is? They think it's a biological weapon. You got it, Russia, Putin. Putin probably did it. I think Putin went over there and did it personally. I think he did. I really think, where was he on the night of the 24th of August? See, you don't know, do you? I think he snuck out. And he flew over there and rode a bicycle and started putting stuff in the water, because it's very possible, you know. At least to them it is. And other news. As you see, I'm going through just a bunch of news here today. Other news is that I told you already, I think 4 weeks ago or maybe 6 weeks ago, that the United States was recruiting militants, I don't know, don't say terrorists, militants or soldiers in some of their camps, bases, insurgent, but don't say terrorist, they're terrorist camps that they control in Syria. But they were recruiting some of them to go fight in Ukraine, actually. And lo and behold, just, was it yesterday? Let me see, did I write when this happened? Last night. Last night, the Russian FSB, they detained in Crimea, which is, like I talked a lot about that lately, that is, as I've been saying, obviously, I mean, you can't really deny this, that is the main goal. The main goal is to get their Crimea, and I can't emphasize that enough. That's the one that's been in Russia's control since 2014. And this other part, the Donbass, not so much. They were rebelling, and of course they've been attacked for all that time. But anyway, the big goal is the Crimea. At the very beginning, before the military operation, there was really no attacks on the Crimea, as you see that. But since the USA started giving Ukraine aid, isn't that odd that there's so much that everything seems to be directed at the Crimea? And the more the US puts money into it, the more they're going to try to take the Crimea, when the Crimea is actually the hardest one to take. And yeah, I don't know. But anyway, everything's pointing to the Crimea. But anyway, that's where they found these guys. Was there 6 of them? 6 members of the Hizb ut Tahrir, international terror organization. So, well, anyway, we see that. Of course, you know, there are Chechens fighting on the side of Ukraine as well. So it's not like there isn't any of this sort of thing. And you know, there's all sorts of people, like what, Colombia, and what other countries? Lots and lots of countries. The United States and Ukraine have recruitment agencies all over the place to recruit people to go and die in Ukraine, actually is what it is. They don't say they're going to die. But you know how the media is. They're not telling them that most of these people are getting massacred in the thousands. What is it? Some reports now say that up to 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers have now died in this conflict. 500,000, 500,000. And of course, huge amounts of the country has left already. I remember seeing, I think they're looking at some countries and they're looking at the percentage of how many of these Ukrainians that are existing in other countries, how many are men and how many are women. So they said 35% is men. So there are men that are getting through. It's not all just women. And of course, unfortunately, when you think about how depressing that is to be a soldier there, a lot of these women leave their husbands and they find new men, even if their husband has not perished in the battle. They find new men in other countries, huge amounts of them. All kinds of domestic stuff going on. You hear about fights. 2 women, I guess, were fighting and injured each other, and they were calling each other Russian when it turns out both of them are Ukrainian. And I believe now, I think Annie Akay was just talking about some men, and the article said, what did they say? They said something like trying to say that they weren't Ukrainian, but anyway, these men were trying to get Polish men to say Slava Ukraina, glory to Ukraine or whatever, and they said, no, we're Polish, we're not going to do that. Anyway, it was a big fight or something and injuries and all, and they let the Ukrainians go without not even a slap on the wrist. So, yeah. But she reported on that also from her video from today that I saw that. Okay, and hey, you know what? I'll tell you right now, subscribe. You know, most people do that. They do it partway into their video, say, subscribe right now. They don't do it at the end. So maybe that works better. So I'll tell you, subscribe right now. Or hit the like button. Supposedly it's supposed to help. I don't know. Okay, So enough of that. Now, for some odd reason, you can't really figure out, people having less money. Obviously, it's a pandemic. I've heard of there's so many videos of people in complete despair in Canada that they can't make it anymore. They just cannot make it in any way, shape, or form. And I would tell them to come to Belarus, but I'll tell you what, you have to have some money saved up first before you come here. And if you speak Russian, of course, your time period of assimilating is much faster here than, like, for example, mine. But I came with quite a bit of savings, sold businesses, and that's another point. I have a photo. I'll have to try to attach that. My cat was visiting just a few days ago from Baranovici, and my mother-in-law, she took the shot in the arm, even though she took Sputnik, and that was like well over a year ago, but ever since she got the shot in the arm, even Sputnik, she's been having some heart problems, and at least once a month some things look real bad and she has to go to the doctors or something. So anyway, she has my cat. I think it helps her with her health very much. She didn't have any real problems at all since my cat has been there. So that, it's therapeutic having an animal. She really, really loves that cat. So it's named after her father, by the way, Vasily. So anyway, that I went like an emergency when I was going to do a video, but I jumped on a transport and picked the cat up and brought it here. So I have a picture of my cat as well, and some of my coffee bags, because the day before or so I found packed in boxes, which we still have quite a few. We don't have closets and things like that yet. But so I have some pictures of the bags of coffee that I used to produce, and then my cat as well. And you'll see that. I'll put this in this video, maybe towards the end. So anyway, what else? We're talking about people not having money. Canada, boy, I tell you what, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't. I don't know. When you don't have any money, you can't even leave unless you find a benefactor. It's not that easy always. Also, French wine has the demand has really dropped. I saw this. I guess it's really, we're talking about products now, coffee, and now we're talking about wine. I was actually thinking about getting into wine, because that sounds like something I would like to do. It's similar to coffee in a way, have to find these good methods of production, and when you get the best methods, you get the better quality product for a large extent. Of course, you have to have a good basis, which means good variety of coffee or a good type of grape compared to what equipment. Let's not go into that. You guys don't want to hear that stuff. But anyway, supposedly France and the EU, and I guess this is mostly about France, but also about other countries in the EU, the demand for wine is really, really dropped. Gosh, I wonder if people, maybe they just don't have the money. What do you think? They're probably buying fruit juice. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper. I have no idea. Wine is really cheap a lot of time. But anyway, maybe for some reason people aren't buying so much wine, so the demand is really low. So they spent a whole bunch of money, according to this article I was reading. What they said is that they spent 200 million euros to destroy the wine surpluses. And of course, rather than selling the wine for next to nothing, which is really what they would have to do, because back when I was living over there in Germany, you could find some wine like for, what was it, €2.99, really excellent wine. I can't remember, that was from Bulgaria, but normally Bulgarian wine is not allowed into the rest of the EU because the quality is very good and the price is very low. So as you see what they do, they fight to keep sales and prices up, and it's very terrible, because they'll take very good products and they will try to destroy them, to keep their products up, depending on what the entity is, what country, or their markets and things like that. you know, you can look into the automobile industry, see what their history is, getting rid of other automobile companies, but that's something else. Anyway, destroying 200 million, I mean, costing 200 million, but I'll tell you what it probably was. They destroyed 200 million worth of wine. You can get a bunch of teenagers, I'll tell you, and they'd love to destroy and smash a bunch of bottles and stuff. So why should it cost 200 million to destroy some wine? You know, hey, I'll do it when I don't have anything to do. Just call me up, I'll come down and start throwing some bottles against a wall or something for them. You know, I want to hear that smash and watch all the red wine and everything going all over the place. Sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest with you. Be destructive, yeah. So anyway, on August 25th, President Lukashenko, he said that you know, with all this BRICS stuff going on, and a lot of people now, you know, the big talk was always to get out of the dollar, and he said that Western hegemony does not stop; it doesn't end now. BRICS, of course, is a strong step, he said, in the direction of multipolarity, but it will not yet occur. It's only the first step, you know, and he's been pretty accurate with a lot of this stuff. So, like, he was the first one that said Zelensky has a very bad destiny, and he even gave some examples of other people that had a bad destiny too, based on, you know, like when they're riding high and everybody gets on their knees in front of them and Heils, well, anyway, let's not say that. I had something deleted for saying Heils. So, but he said it's something else. He didn't say directly, but he strongly indicated when the hegemony is going to end. Actually, he sort of did say, in a way, but he wasn't. He was talking in generalities, you know, and that's always a safe way, because then it gives you some wiggle room for future events when you're talking in generalities rather than talking about specifics. And you can't talk in specifics because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, when something happens, somebody else reacts this way and that way, and your whole how do you say, scenario, plans, everything changes. So, but he said the hegemony will stop when the units of account change, and it will be a sign that it ends then and there. Unit of accounts, and you know, a lot of time that means well, what it means to me is like when people start looking at other sources of value rather than, say, the dollar and maybe even the euro, which is actually kind of another way of saying de-dollarization, but it's not exactly that, because, you know, coming up, you know, they're not talking about coming up with a new currency, although the renminbi, or the Chinese yuan, however you want to call it, is gaining in stature, especially like in Russia. And Russia, what did it move into the 5th place? And there was some kind of a observation when you're looking at all these Western economies, they're all mostly sinking. The only one, there was one, what was Brazil? Brazil lost 1 place as far as GDP. So they went down 1 notch. But otherwise, all these other economies are moving up a notch, you know, in the past, what is it, year or two. And Ukraine, of course, went from, I guess, number 38th to number 50 as far as GDP. And GDP doesn't measure everything, you know. What is GDP? Like, for example, if you think about the United States, their GDP, part of the GDP is them just, like I said in one of the last videos, just switching money back and forth. They earn a fee on transferring money from one bank to the next bank, and then they have Wall Street. And it's probably the same in England. So their real GDP, based on what they produce, is not that much. Look at China. Look at China, what they produce. Let me think, who was that? It was either, wasn't Paul Craig Roberts? Well, most anybody will tell you. Well, actually, it was also Alexander Mercouris was mentioning that when you talk about production, China produces more goods and products than the United States and Europe combined. So that's where it's really at, baby. You know, that's it's sort of like that first rule of prosperity: produce more than you consume, because when you produce more than you consume, you can sell what you overproduced and bring money into the country. So, and when you're not producing anything, you know, guess what happens when the dollar fades? And it's not going to happen immediately, but I'll tell you what, you know how the rule of everything goes when it comes to money. You have this expression, slowly at first and then all at once. So that's how a lot of rich people lost their fortunes, and they will tell you, well, how did that happen? And they say, slowly at first and then all at once. So ask Argentina about that. Argentina now is again risen. How many times does Argentina keep rising up and then falling down? Maybe with entry into the BRICS, maybe they'll be there a lot longer. Who knows? I don't even know why their economics has these collapses all the time. Okay, what else instead of jabbering on, Duke? He was also mentioning China and India. He said that you know, as you and I know, and we feel the same thing, everybody does that is in the know, that it's a very good thing that India and China are in favor of this multipolar world. He said, in spite of being courted by the United States. Obviously, the United States is trying to tear India and China away from the multipolar world and say, come with us, you know, we'll stick it to those other guys, you know. But, you know, they're not stupid. They know that if they jump on the side of the U.S., then they're next. And obviously, these Western people, including France and Germany, they don't accept China, and they don't accept India. They don't even accept Turkey. The first chance they get, they'll stab them in the back, because they don't like them. They don't like the Russians. They've never liked the Russians, and like I said, that's been in history, you know. And when I was studying, I studied mostly, like I told you, like German history. But one of the things that really stuck with me when I was studying that, because I was studying quite a bit about something, you know. Then it was called the Nordmark. I mentioned this before. You know, this little area. This was a militaristic little point, and it was the very beginnings of Germany. And it was a little place, probably in Poland now, but it was called Nordmark, and that was the beginnings of the German imperial country nation. And then, you know, they expanded, and it was the at that time the first dynasty was called the Ascanian dynasty. They were the real founders, and they were in the Crusades, and they got a gift from the Holy Roman Emperor Lothar of the Nordmark, you know, to be in charge of that. And as a matter of fact, that part, it was Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad was a part of Germany at that time. But even though there was no country called Germany, but it was considered German, a future German entity. But anyway, then, you know, was the Nordmark. And the Nordmark, as I said, what that meant, there was actually another military post that was further north than that, and then it was the Middle March and things like that. And these things were designed to keep Slavic peoples out of Europe, because, you know, they believed, you know, the Europeans, that was the Holy Roman Empire at the time. That was like, say, the precursor in the Middle Ages times of the European Union. Then, you know, it's to keep them out of Europe. And so anyway, the Nordmark, it eventually became the state of Brandenburg, you know, and then sometime it was Brandenburg-Vorpommern, so Pomerania, and then the Silesia joined in. You know, these were all separate states. Germany had over 600 states at that time, supposedly 600 separate principalities, and a lot of them had different dialects and things, but they weren't unified. They only became unified at 1870 with Bismarck in the Prussian Diet under the first Kaiser, I don't know, I get my Williams and Fredericks mixed up. Most of them all were called William and Frederick. So that was Kaiser Wilhelm. I want to say Wilhelm, but that was the other one. Well, maybe they say William the First. I don't know. I can't even remember anymore. What was Kaiser Wilhelm's father's name? But actually, you know, a little side note, he was not the actual chosen Kaiser after the death of his father. There was another Kaiser, and I think he was called the 100-day Kaiser because he was only emperor of Germany for 100 days. So that was the brother of Kaiser Wilhelm, who, you know, didn't really like Bismarck, and they called it the dropping of the pilot in 1890 when he got rid of Bismarck and kind of took over for himself. And this great complex of alliances that Bismarck created to keep Europe from going into war then started to unravel, and of course it did, you know, became a reality in 1914. But anyway, what I'm just trying to say is a lot of the get off my tangents, but what I was trying to say is that the European hierarchy, let's say your elites, they never liked the Slavic peoples. They hate Slavic peoples. They hate Ukrainians, they hate Poles, they hate Russians, and they've been hating them for hundreds of years, and they will never accept them. They won't accept anyone. So I hate to say it, but you could call this racism or ethnicism. You know, they only see their own kind as being worthy. And as you know, even amongst themselves, the British hated the French, the Germans hated the French. Everybody hates the French, but the French hate everybody else. So I mean, but they get along to a large extent now, so that's actually kind of a good thing. I guess they're united to get those Russians, you know. But I should add, since I've been here, you know, Belarus is virtually just like the Russians. The people here are a lot more docile than in the Europeans. They're a lot less likely to go and be violent, and I think you see some great big guy looks like I've said, he looks like some big bodybuilder, weightlifter guy that never went to school, and you find out he's a physicist or something. You have these people like that, and most all of them the men can, you know, they can work on their car, do mechanics. They can do a lot of work inside of their house, building and things like that. So they're, like I said, they're very multifaceted men, and even the women are too, as far as what you traditionally expect from a woman. Take care of kids, and also do the household, things like that. Most of them are like that. So anyway, but as far as these other countries like India and China, they know that they're not accepted either by the West, and if Russia goes, then they're next. So and the United States, of course, wants to master everybody. One ring to bind them all. So they want one ring to bind them all. They want to be the masters of everybody. The USA will stick a knife in the back of France or Germany or anybody to stay ahead. You know, you got the neocons. The neocons, they want domination. You know, they're very much like their neoliberal buddies and their neo-Nazis, nasties, or if I can say that word, neo-nasties in the Ukraine. So they all want to rule together. So, and I've already mentioned India is globally third place now economically, and Lukashenko, he was also mentioning what India said, that Modi, he said that India is the strongest developing economy in the world right now, and of course it is. And Lukashenko, he said yes, it is. It is with good reason that that India said that. He said also, I also noted, just a little note, and actually this video is ending now, I believe, that Russia has, I believe it was yesterday, they conducted tests on laser weapons, laser air defense weapons, and they're very successful. I believe they shot down 3 drones at one time with lasers. So And things are going really fast since this military operation has been going. Russia has been developing really fast. They're shooting down most everything that Ukraine can throw at them. As you notice, I think it was last night, I believe was over 40 drone attacks on the Crimea, and everything was shot down. At least that's what they say in the news. If you can believe that, you know. As I say, I'm trying to stay somewhat fair. I'm more on the side of Russia because they're on the side of humanity, and these other neo-nasties are not on the side of humanity. So, but beyond that, you know, if something is not true, I will try to say it. And I'm not saying that Russia lies, but if you want to say, we always hear about how many Ukrainians are dying. You know, on this day, 400 and 150 over there and 60 there and all this sort of thing, but you never hear of how many Russians died, and sure, certainly they do. You hear about it sometimes when there's a large amount, you know, when there's some, I think there was some attack once and I think over 80 of them, Russians died. And I don't think they're destroying Russians in large numbers really, but we never get the numbers of how many Russians are actually dying. And some people would say they're lying by omission. I don't know. It's not lying, it's just, I don't know, lying by omission. No, they're not lying, but they're just leaving out those numbers. It's like the USA, they completely fabricate stuff. I don't know. I'm getting sick of how the media works anyway. So, but I think that's about all the news that I have at this moment. Probably other things I could say. Maybe I'll tack onto this if I can find something else interesting to show you, maybe. But for right now, that's it, and thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. So for now, bye bye.